What's up, everyone? In this video, we have some very exciting things to talk about. The stock market is heating back up again. We have some key stocks that are about to move in some really big ways this week. The market had a pretty awesome week last week, but we are not in the clear just yet. We still have a lot of crucial levels ahead of us, and this week will definitely be exciting. Make sure to stick with us all the way to the end of today's video. We have some great plays for the week, and towards the end of the video, we have a $705,000 trade you won't want to miss. But with that being said, Tom, let's get right into today's video.
Yeah, Mike, last week, Apple and a lot of key tech stocks were really running up on Friday. Like Apple was blasting up, Tesla was moving to the upside, Microsoft was coming back, and we saw the SPY ripping back up, and so many stocks were in the green after having a terrible bounce off of $400 in the middle of the week last week. You can see we had that big downwards move, but then we almost came all the way back up on Friday. So heading into next week, Mike, there's some pretty big things to watch for here in the stock market. We have some awesome stuff in today's video, like some earnings to go over, some stuff on the economic calendar, even some funny stuff coming up. But Mike, there's some big levels here on the SPY, like 400 overhead this week is gonna be ginormous for everybody to watch. So guys, keep your eyes on $400 on the SPY. That is gonna be a huge overhead resistance. There is some supports down here too, Mike, like around 393 and then 391 to 390 as well, where we got some nice price action this week. But I think the big level people are going to be looking for is that big resistance, especially with all these earnings coming up this week that could possibly push us up a little bit higher. But there's a lot of stuff going on, Mike, a lot of crazy stuff in the world, even with like Ukraine and stuff like that right now. So hopefully the market can keep up on this nice uptrend and the SPY can keep ripping up. And who knows, maybe we'll break 400 with all these big earnings coming out.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Now, Tom, I was reading the news this weekend and I saw something that I never thought I would have seen before. And apparently, egg smuggling at the U.S.-Mexico border is up 108%. Yes, egg smuggling. This is insane. Like I had to do a double take on this news really quickly, but we all know how the price of eggs have been going crazy over the past couple of years. It looks like the price of eggs, like in some cases, over 5x over the past couple of years, and it's insane. But who would have thought that egg smuggling would be up 108% at the border?
Yeah, like what the hell's going on, Mike? Egg smuggling, like get out of here. That sounds insane. I can't even believe that people would even steal eggs. You know, like imagine this, Mike. Eggs cost what? It says costing up to $8 per dozen in parts of America. I think I pay like $3.96 or something for a dozen here the past couple weeks. But man, like imagine smuggling eggs. Like, you know, like I know people smuggle a lot of like illegal contraband and stuff like that. Maybe even this stuff right here on this ad they're showing. But Mike, I know that eggs, it's like, why would you risk why would you risk getting in trouble over some eggs? But hey, I guess it's worth it, Mike. You know, if you're paying $8 a dozen, I'd be pretty pissed too. But that's pretty funny, Mike. Eggs. And what was the ticker again that kind of goes with this?
Calm. So CALM, Cal-Maine stock, has actually been doing pretty decently over the past couple months. You know, they're a giant egg producer, and I'll tell you, they've been holding up a lot better than some of these other stocks.
Yeah, they definitely have. It kind of reminds me of almost like an end phase or something like that with how high they are this year. They're actually holding up a little bit better, I'd say, closer up towards highs. They did recently have that big gap down, and they were down a little bit Friday, but there's a huge support on Cal-Maine stock right around $52. But Mike, that is hilarious. Eggs. Hopefully, you know, we don't get any like rotten eggs in the market this week with these earnings coming up. I'll tell you, if some of these end up being rotten, man, we could see the SPY really tank down, especially like with Tesla on Wednesday, Microsoft on Tuesday, Lockheed Martin and Boeing are reporting, Intel, Visa, Nokia. I mean, this is going to be probably one of the biggest earnings seasons that we've had in a long time. So hopefully it's not a dud.
Yeah, you know, we're in for some giant moves this week. Tom, I have to ask you, if you had to pick one stock that you're going to watch the closest that reports earnings this week, what is it?
Wow, I'm going to have to say Tesla myself. That's probably my biggest watcher on the list. I mean, I love a lot of these stocks, though. Like, I love Intel, Microsoft, Boeing, Johnson & Johnson, Lockheed, but Tesla is going to be the biggest one. I know that they've been doing a lot of stuff with their factories in Texas and their factories in Berlin. So hopefully they can report some better numbers. Honestly, in the short term, I'm not really expecting a lot from Tesla. I'm really looking for at them for the next couple years. But I will say, though, Mike, that the earnings is going to be extremely interesting for them, as it will be for a lot of these other companies, too.
Yeah, and I would say Tesla's probably the most popular stock for earnings this week. Obviously, everyone follows it. I will say I am to watch, Tesla, as a potential like maybe short-term trade. It does tend to move in some pretty big ways, especially with earnings. But if I had to pick one stock that I'm watching the most this week, it would be Microsoft on Tuesday after market close. They're a powerhouse in many different senses, and they've been holding up decently over the past couple months. Right now, Microsoft is right around $240 a share. It has lows of around $213 a share that it made back in the beginning of November of 2022. Since then, it's just been consolidating a little bit, but every now and then it has a pretty good move.
Yeah, I honestly like this a little bit better than Tesla even. It looks like a better setup, I'd say, down here around lows. Like we've been retesting support for a while, especially that big support around like 225 to 220. There's been a lot of bounces down here in that little range. Whereas like if we look at Tesla, they've pretty much been falling straight down here with very little support bounces. So I don't know. Tesla might have a good reaction and might, pop up 10-20% or something like that, given how much they've been going down if it goes well. Whereas I feel like Microsoft, well, tell me what you think, Mike, but I don't think Microsoft's going to fly up, 10 or 20% or have anything crazy like that, maybe 10%. But I will say this, I expect them to probably do better than Tesla in their report, especially just given, the type of company they are. I know Tesla has been hit pretty hard this year with a lot of different things, from demand dropping. They just had to lower prices. And, imagine that, Mike, a company like Tesla lowers prices in a time of high inflation. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point for sure. What's interesting, just like you said, is like Tesla is much more of like a volatile, crazy stock. I definitely agree with you in the sense that Tesla tends to move a lot more than a company like Microsoft. Microsoft's been around for, longer. It's more of like a stable company at this point, where Tesla still has a little bit of that growth stock in it.
Yeah, it definitely does. And whenever you say stable, though, Mike, I mean, it still has good moves, though. So don't get that wrong, guys. There's still some good moves here on Microsoft, too. Like, it's just like, you're probably not going to see like a 30% uptick, although I will say from the recent low to the recent high, it's about 22%. So pretty volatile. I know with all these stocks falling down this year, it's created so much volatility here, but there's a lot of other stocks reporting too, like Boeing, AT&T, Progressive, even down here at the bottom, Mike. Like, look, there's some kind of going under the radar a little bit, like 3M, Raytheon, Next Era Energy, Las Vegas Sands, Seagate's a pretty big tech stock too. So a lot of stocks, guys. Screenshot this if you want. There's a lot coming up, and we're going to be talking about them a lot more as well as we get closer to some of these reports. Even Logitech tomorrow is going to be interesting for me.
Yep, there we go. So, Tom, for the schedule for this week, what events do we need to know about?
Yeah, so guys, we're actually pretty scot-free besides the earnings, which is awesome for the beginning of the week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, nothing too crazy here. You can see there's the NBA 30-year mortgage rate coming out on Wednesday, a little small things on Tuesday, but the big things are going to be Thursday and Friday. So we're going to have the GDP growth rate quarter over quarter, Mike, for Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. That is going to be huge for the overall market. As we know, the GDP growth rate is very, very important. The previous number came in at 3.2%. It looks like they're actually forecasting a fairly decent drop here, Mike. So I don't know, not looking good on that GDP number there. Hopefully that doesn't hurt the market too much, especially with us at this big resistance. But then Friday, we have the core PCE index coming out and some personal income and personal spending numbers. So some pretty big stuff towards the end of the week, but that GDP number is going to be the biggest thing I'm watching for sure.
All right, sounds good. So I want to go back to the charts just for a second, Tom. You were giving us a lot of key levels for SPY, like especially intraday, and that's awesome. I want to take a look at SPY on the daily really quick, though, to point something out. We can see that we've been continuously bouncing off and rejecting off this upper resistance line ever since the start of 2022. Last week, we tried to break through that on the SPY, but got rejected pretty hard. but it looks like we're basically right back at this resistance line. And Tom, like we've been saying for some time, if earnings are pretty good and like we start to get that upwards momentum shift, swing back in, that could be the catalyst to make SPY break through this resistance, but that's a key if there. It's like if earnings are good and if the reactions are good, then we could see a pop. But, it sounds a lot easier than it'll actually be.
Yeah, exactly. And with this line, there's also been a few like small fake outs along the way too. Like a couple months ago on December 13th, you can see like there was a day where we actually broke the trend line pretty well and then ended up coming back down. I believe that was like a day with some with one of the FOMC meetings maybe, or some inflation numbers came out that day. So it was obviously really volatile, just like earnings might be volatile this week. So just be a little bit careful here. Like we might see like one or two candles pop up above here, for example. And then maybe if Tesla, Intel, and Visa and MasterCard all report bad earnings, it could turn back around. So it could be volatile. But Mike, I'm really hoping that if we get a solid break, that we can finally start to move up. And I think that that $400 resistance up here on SPY might be a pretty big level to watch, because what I like about that $400 level is that it's a little bit above this trend line too. So if we break that, that might be a good confirmation level to, maybe like wait for a nice break above. But you know what one thing that is slightly negative about earnings, Mike, and I know a lot of people probably think this in their heads, is that all the earnings go on in either pre-market or after hours. So a lot of these moves are probably going to be some pretty big gaps up and down. So it might be a little bit hard to even trade the SPY, given all the gap ups and down. But I feel like that if you catch like, if we notice SPYs going up and you catch it on a nice dip or something, that might be a pretty good way to go.
True. And then another thing, like in terms of like the bearish side of things too, it's like, this resistance is pretty tough. So, if we see like a tough rejection on the SPY at this level and bad earnings, SPY can probably easily dip down to like that 389 to 390 level, or maybe even worse, closer to like that 378 level.
Yeah, definitely could. There's a lot of huge levels down here, Mike. 378 is a huge support. And yeah, if we start rejecting here, I would expect that we probably end up running down to there at least over the next couple of weeks. But it's going to be a crazy earnings season, Mike. There's a lot of big stocks here, and a lot of these stocks that are reporting sooner at pretty big resistance. Like I know Tesla has just been falling off the board lately. Like look at Microsoft. It's running up into a big area of resistance around 240 to 243. Like there's been a lot of price action here over the past couple of weeks. And if some of these stocks start breaking, I think that we can go on some pretty good uptrends. So I'm praying for some earnings, Mike. Let's go, guys. We need to see some good positive momentum. And, as long as we see some good momentum in either direction, we can usually make some pretty good plays. So I just want to see some good movement.
All right, there we go. So let's get right into some good setups for the week. My first setup is Shopify, and it is to the upside. If you guys were watching our videos last week, you would know that Shopify is very significant because a $37 million options trade to the upside was put into this one on the 18th, January 18th, right? Yes, $37 million. That's an insane trade, and it is a bullish trade nonetheless. But Shopify has a long history of amazing moves. It's still very oversold on the daily chart, and it has room to run up. So I'm definitely watching it for those reasons, but also mainly because of that giant trade that we saw last week. I really do like the risk reward ratio on this one. And while this stock with this specific big money trade, it isn't necessarily a bet that the stock's going to go up tomorrow, but over the next couple weeks, there's a good chance that it does pop up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it can have a good chance to go up too, especially with that much money being put into these calls. And the calls have so much time that I love it to the upside. And it's just so deep in the money with that 30 strike that it just gives us so much confidence that it's probably a bullish trade. Because could you imagine, Mike, if they shorted that much money worth of these shop calls at 30 and shop keeps going up here, they're going to get annihilated. So I would definitely think that they're longing it, Mike. And I love this play on shop too. I love how shop's been consolidating down here for a while and bouncing off a lot of support. Seems like it's definitely holding down here at these levels. It's not like making new lows or anything like that. So I'm glad it's holding, Mike. I will definitely be watching it for this week coming up as well. Another big stock at a big resistance is Citigroup. And Mike, this is actually a post-earnings play here on Citi. So last week, Citigroup reported earnings. They actually did pretty well. Or it might have been a couple weeks ago. Yeah, a couple weeks ago at this point. But they had some pretty good movement last week, and I noticed that with earnings, they ran up, touched a big resistance around like 50 to 51, and then now they're starting to consolidate back down to around like 48 or 49. But on Friday, we actually broke all the way up above 51 momentarily, and we're sitting like right at the resistance. So I'm going to be watching Citigroup for a potential earnings continuation play. They have a lot of upward momentum right now. They're breaking recent resistance. If they do keep running, watch for some resistances, maybe close to like $52. And then there's a huge one up around 53. So, maybe use those levels as some good targets.
All right, sounds good. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is Zoom. You guys know I've been talking about this one so much, especially over the past couple weeks. It's lingering right around its all-time low. It's holding support in a pretty good way. And the main reason I like this setup is just like the risk reward ratio on it. Right now, the stock's right around $70 per share. You might have your stop around like $63.50. And, you might start to take profits at 80, or maybe if you want to get a little bit more risky, maybe like 85 or maybe even like 89 or so. So I just really like the risk reward ratio on this one, especially as we're starting to see the market chill out a little bit. And a lot of stocks actually move up to the upside.
Yeah, like you said, stocks are finally starting to move. Thank God. I mean, it's been so long, especially for some of these poor growth stocks, like Zoom is one, DraftKings. I mean, there's been so many of these growth stocks stuck down here at lows. I will say though, Mike, Zoom is actually a lot closer to lows than a lot of the other growth stocks that we've been seeing lately. So hopefully that risk reward plays out well for us. And Zoom has pretty good fundamentals, right, Mike? I mean, you would think that over the longer term, they'd start to come back a little bit.
Yeah, they're definitely better than your average growth stock. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know I've been watching, we've been hearing about Zoom and talking about it so much the past year. I mean, man, it's one of those awesome growth stocks. Keep it on the radar, guys. I hope it can start to break back out. I don't know if you'd call Nvidia a growth stock necessarily, Mike. I guess you can, but it's one of the bigger tech stocks out there. It's another stock kind of like Citigroup, where I noticed it had a lot of momentum Friday, running up the recent resistance. And what I really like about this is that they have a recent huge overhead resistance up here right around 188. And then there's also a shorter term resistance right around like 180. So what I'm really looking for with Nvidia here is a big push this week up above 180. And then I might target 188 to the upside. So if we look at that on like a 15-minute chart here, you can kind of see that recent resistance up there at 188, and then the 180 resistance too. So like if we get this break, I feel like we could maybe come up and like start to retest like 188 pretty well to the upside. So hopefully we get the break, Mike. It's going to depend on a lot of these big tech stocks reporting earnings, and Nvidia should be one of those tech stocks that moves up well if, Apple, well, if Microsoft, Tesla, and a couple other of those tech stocks do well.
All right, there we go. Well, with that being said, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, we have Spotify to the upside.
Yeah, and Spotify is actually awesome, Mike. I love this stock. Joe Rogan's on Spotify, and, I like Spotify as a company overall. And man, Friday, I will say they had some awesome momentum here. So if they can break the double top around 98.30, I'll look for some calls to the upside.
All right, with the next one, we have Disney also to the upside.
DIS. Now that was just a straight up explosion. We're breaking up above $100. So let's go ahead and break out above 103.75 on Monday.
And with the last one, we have Tesla, and we need both directions on this one.
Yeah, good old Tessie, maybe a pre-earnings move here. So to the upside, Tesla has a pretty big resistance here right around like 134. So if we can break 134, I'll watch for a nice run to the upside. I will say though, Mike, if they end up breaking the support around like 131.60, I think they could fall off a little bit. So really watch 131.60 to the downside and then 134 to the upside.
All right, so we are watching Tesla for potential day trade to the downside tomorrow, only if it breaks below the level Tom listed. And we are watching Tesla for potential day trade to the upside tomorrow, only if it breaks above that upper level Tom listed. Also, don't forget about that Disney and Spotify setup as well. Both of those are potential day trade to the upside, only if they break above those upwards levels. But we cannot forget about the big money trade of the day. We had $705,000 go into SPLK. So SPLK, more specifically, $705,000 was put into the SPLK 90 strike call options for March 17th of 2023. So basically, SPLK has fallen a good amount, like many other stocks have. But over the past couple of weeks and months, SPLK has been doing really well, actually. It actually bottomed in the middle of October, which is a little bit earlier than some of these other stocks bottomed, and it's been uptrending ever since. Basically, this is a bullish trade where the smart money wants SPLK to go up as much as possible. The higher it goes, the more millions they'll make. But overall, I don't think it's a bad setup at all.
Yeah, I don't either. Some of these like trend lines down here at the bottom seem like they're holding up pretty well too. And I'll definitely be keeping it on the radar. It's a lot of money into those 90 strike calls. It's like right around the money. And I love the way that SPLK is holding support last week and how they've started pointing back up. They've honestly been very flat, Mike. Like if on the daily, at least, I'm sure intraday, there's a lot of good opportunities on it. But on the daily, like last week, it was pretty flat. A lot of price action there, a lot of candles staying like right around like $88 to $90. I'm really hoping for a big push up this week, maybe above like that resistance around like 92 or somewhere like that. I think we could see a pretty big move up above there, especially if earnings go well. It'll be even better. So keep SPLK on the radar. Kind of like it's definitely a growth stock, Mike. And I have seen some pretty big hype associated with this one. I've had a lot of questions about SPLK, and I know quite a few traders are interested in this stock. So hopefully, we get that big break. And like we keep saying, though, earnings this week might be the deciding factor for a lot of these stocks.
You know it. And if you guys want to get access to these big money trades that we talk about in every single video before the market closes and be able to trade them on the same day they're made, definitely check out that first link in the description and the comments down below. You'll get access to these big money, multi-million-dollar trades every single day, like I said, before the market closes. You'll also get access to our hybrid bot, sniper bot, a bunch of other custom tools that you won't find anywhere else, and an amazing private community. We have a bunch of great traders and people in the chat. So definitely make sure to check out that first link in the description and the comments down below. Our bots have been crushing it lately, whether it's the sniper bot or the hybrid bot. If you're into short-term trading, this is the program for you. If you don't like it, you can cancel it anytime. No questions asked. You also get a discount code for the first month, so definitely make sure to check it out. Again, it'll be that first link in the description and the comments down below. But with that being said, Tom, I think we're set for a very exciting week. We're going to see a ton of great moves, especially with all these big earnings releases. Do you have any final thoughts or anything else you want to cover?
Yeah, don't forget the GDP growth rate towards the end of the week, guys. But the big stuff is going to be the earnings. We will talk about them a lot more as the days go on. Obviously, like tomorrow, we'll talk a lot more about Verizon, Microsoft, Lockheed Martin, and all those big stocks reporting. So make sure to check back in this week. We're going to have a crazy week, Mike. Lots of volatility coming in. Hopefully that SPY can get up to 400 and then break it. So let's go, guys. Have a great week. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite earnings play is. Who knows? Maybe we'll if we see enough people talking about a specific one, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, you know it. Also, I want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day. Shout out Sudden in the StockedUp Discord. You've been in the chat for more than 2 years now, and your activity has definitely been increasing lately. So make sure to keep it up. Overall, I think this week is going to be filled with a bunch of great opportunities and moves. So Tom and I are pretty excited. Again, if you want to really capitalize on some of the short-term movement, check out the link in the description and the comments down below. Our bots have been crushing it lately. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's have an amazing week.